we'll catch you up, and you give me a time, and we'll make it happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So the next item is 3472 under new business, the Rockwool plumbing plans. You want to give us some background on that, Darryl, please?
Sure. So as you can see in the packet, back in February, and I think Councilman Brittingham raised this at the workshop last week, Rockwool had indicated that they would provide a copy of their plumbing plans to us when they were complete. They anticipated that would happen in April of this year. They have not yet provided the plans to us. In the conversations I've had with them, it sounds like they may be tweaking the final pieces of it, but having said that, the plans, I think, are for the most part in the final form. So what you have here then is a letter requesting that they provide those plans to the city. We have reached out to them. We've been trying to coordinate an opportunity for them to present. I think as Councilman Brittingham raised at the workshop as well, that's turned into a longer process than we originally anticipated. And so the idea of the letter is to encourage that to happen sooner rather than later, and also, though, to ask that they submit them to us to be included as part of the record, our records, and not just to come and present them and then leave, which is their current proposal. So that's what this letter does. In a conversation I had with Mayor Trainer, so this letter is already out of date. He had asked that I make one change to it, so I'm going to pass around an option 2. So you've got this option, and then the second option. What I've done is I've highlighted in red what is proposed as being a change, and basically it provides an opportunity for them to explain, if they aren't able to provide them by the 15th, to provide a written explanation as to why they are unable or unwilling to provide a copy to us. So anyway, I don't know, Mike, if you want to just add some thoughts.
Well, I mean, obviously this is an important subject to me. This is the first I'm seeing the extra sentence, but I'm not a fan of it. I mean, they have their plumbing plans. They can submit them to us. They're an email away. I guarantee you that they've submitted them to many people, including Ranson. I mean, they've submitted these plans, their entire site plan, to the city of Ranson in order to get their building permit. I let you know at the last city council meeting all the various rooms in the building that call for industrial floor drains that were listed in the fire marshal's permit that they completed less than a week and a half ago. And for those of us that don't think that the world is all butterflies and unicorns like myself, I typically find interesting circumstances in timing, but less than a week and a half ago, Rockwool submitted for a new National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. They have a new NPDES permit out there. That permit specifically talks about a lot of the drains, a lot of those things. I haven't seen that they have this permit down in Mississippi, so I find it interesting that it's being submitted now, that this is being brought up here, but I'm just going to read you 2 paragraphs from it where it talks about floor drains. No interior building floor drain is designed for connection to the storm drain system. Roof drainage, which is unaffected by these processes, connects to the storm drain system. Floor drains in office space, bathrooms, and other areas are directed through the sanitary sewer to the Charlestown wastewater treatment plant. No interior building floor drains are connected to the storm drain system. In addition, these drains do not discharge to an exterior area where they may affect a stormwater drain. Therefore, the potential risk to the surface water and groundwater from these floor drains is considered very low. So in other words, none of these drains leave their building, but one way, through the Charlestown wastewater treatment plant. They don't interact with their stormwater system that's outside, their stormwater management ponds. I tell you what, we went over these MPDS permits, and Councilman George, you were there, and Councilman Trainer, and Quill, and Councilman Hines. We went over these over and over and over again, and there are 4 things that are supposed to be coming into our wastewater system. Sinks, toilets, refuse water from the water softener, and refuse water from the reverse osmosis process. Anything other than that should be a full stop. Should be a full stop on accepting their wastewater, because they said it over and over again. And I'm sorry, but to me, there's only one word that describes somebody that knowingly tells you something that they know is not true in a purpose to deceive you, and that's a liar. And I don't do business with liars. I don't do it in my personal life. I don't do it in my business life. Most people get one shot with me. Sometimes if I need them bad enough, maybe I'll give them a second chance. But these guys have lied over and over again to us, and it's happening right now in front of our eyes. And they're going to try to discharge something into our sewer system that they're not making us aware of. So I certainly want their plumbing schematics. I think it's, once again, ridiculous that we wouldn't require that from any new construction user, especially an industrial user that's tapping into our sewer system, especially one that relies so heavily in their manufacturing process on water and sewer usage. I mean, they use an enormous amount of water, so I think it's crazy that that wouldn't be a prerequisite. But that's why I'm asking for this, and if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer it.
I think if I could just, the point is that it's not a requirement that they submit the plumbing schematics to CTUB.
Agreed.
So I guess if there's, the reason that I thought to put that little clause in there, if there's some reason that we are not seeing, and I'm not saying that there is, tell us what the reason is. I agree with you. They said, we're going to give you this stuff on April the 10th, and we don't have it. It's okay. Tell us why we don't have it, or tell us why we can't get it.
Well, and to that I would say, it is not written down on paper at CTUB. It should be. I would hope after this they will look at their processes for as we grow, because I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hennessy or Mr. George, but that this is our first industrial user other than ourselves. Now that we've begun the consolidation, we have some other industrial users, but this will be our first. And so I hope that they look at that. And I will say, I'm absolutely not impressed with any due diligence that CTUB staff has done for this customer. I think they want to see this done. I think they're over-discussing it. And I don't see them doing any of the due diligence to require these things. Why I have to ask for this seems ridiculous. I would want CTUB staff to go, this is our baby. We want to make sure that nothing comes into this wastewater treatment plant that shouldn't be coming in there that's going to harm our systems or that we're not being told about. And so I want that out of them. But once again, we're here discussing this, not CTUB.
And I think that what we discussed in the workshop is basically it will be monitored by CTUB, what they put out. Listen, I don't like what you just read, by the way. That is a little concerning to me. But basically, my point is they promised you these schematics. They haven't delivered. So give us the schematics or tell us why you can't.
My problem is that they're...
But even if we get the schematics, right, is that going to answer your question?
I don't know. I mean, we would have to have, a actual plumbing engineer or, whoever has the knowledge capacity to do that. But I would just add that there are now 2 MPDS permits that have been filed. One that says what I just read, and one that was signed by our utility board.
When was the second one filed?
I want to say July 22nd.
Okay.
Is I believe the date on it. My computer died while we were sitting here, so I can't pull it back up. They are in conflict with each other. So either there's something wrong with their current one, their new one. Now, the new one does not, it involves a lot of stormwater things. It does not replace the one that we've already submitted. This is an additional MPDES permit. But they're certainly in conflict with each other, and so either they're filing something in the new one that doesn't appear to be true, or they talked us into filing something in ours that isn't true. And that's a serious problem for me. And that's something that I've brought up time and time again with these guys. And I'm sorry, you have to be naive to believe that these are good actors after all of the things that they have told us that have not turned out to be true. When you read further, the new MPDES permit is like 400 pages long. I mean, it's long.
That was submitted to CTUB?
No, it was submitted to West Virginia DEP.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with CTUB because it's talking about the stormwater that is going to be released, and that's a whole nother read for the environmentalists that want to get concerned about the karst geology and everything else that people have been saying, oh, they're just, crazy, they're just alarmists. Well, guess what? In their MPDES permit, they talk about all the karst geology and all the issues that can arise from it and all the special things that they have to put in place to stop from it. But like I said, that's for somebody else's conversation.
Submittal talks about the deck drains going into the sewer system.
Yes.
Okay, so that's not going in the stormwater. That's something different than the first.
This says that
permit.
it does not, that no interior building floor drain is designed for connection to the storm drain system. So what they're arguing kind of in this paragraph is that, oh, we're not going to hurt the stormwater system out there, and we're not going to hurt the stream that's out there that all this is going into because it's going into the the municipal sewer system. That's basically their argument here.
Is that what they said there, that's going in the sewer system, or is it just
yeah.
that they're gonna be there? Because they could be sump pumps, and they could be running outside, you know? They might have
No,
a
it says
little
it
flood
doesn't.
or something.
It says floor drains in the office space, bathrooms, and other areas are directed through the sanitary sewer to the Charlestown wastewater treatment plant. No interior building floor drains are connected to the storm drain system. In addition, these drains do not discharge to an exterior area where they may affect a stormwater drain.
Okay, so you said in the bathroom and in offices, so they're not
Other
gonna be,
areas.
And
they're not gonna be out there where they have production.
yes, they are.
Yeah, they
No,
have
that's not what you just said.
In their farm, because they say other areas. They don't list the specific other areas.
All right.
And in the fire marshal's permits, they call for these drains in the lower spinning chamber, process water tanks, process water filter,
Okay,
process cooling system, binder room, where the formaldehyde, I mean,
okay.
these are the rooms where the nasty stuff is. And,
Yeah.
and what I brought up to some others is it's kind of logical if we kind of think back to it. I mean, how do you wash the equipment, right? They've got to wash it, and it's got to go into floor drains, and more than likely, and they can alleviate these arguments if they show us the plumbing schematics.
Okay.
Maybe they do go magically somewhere else.
Well, actually, it sounds like they're telling you where they're going. But let me ask you another question on the plumbing schematics and requirement 4, the plumbing schematics. What are you proposing that all industrial users in the future would submit their plumbing schematics to the utilities?
I would say when you have new construction that requires a connection to our wastewater treatment system, that, yeah, you submit your
Industrial or,
industrial or commercial.
so every house would have to submit?
Industrial or commercial, not residential necessarily.
Okay.
Like I just built a building. My water provider is the town of Percival. It's a commercial building. It is the first thing the town asked me for.
Yeah.
And then I had to submit them to Loudoun County. I had to submit them to the fire marshal's office for the sprinkler system.
Did the same in Brunswick, City of Brunswick for our pest control storage.
Okay.
They use them to do your fixture counts, to figure out what size meter you need, how many sinks, toilets do you have. You know, they want to make sure.
Okay, I'm with you. So is the disconnect here, could it be because the building is in Ranson and that we're supplying this? Because Ranson, you said, has the drawings, right?
Yes, but, and I had this conversation with Mr. Hennessy, I don't think we should be arguing with Ranson. I don't think it's Ranson's obligation to provide these to us. This is the user's obligation. Ranson, they did their due diligence in order to issue the building permit. They required the full plumbing schematics, full building, drawings, AC, whatever. I don't think CTUB's doing our due diligence with these new users. We are kind of growing at a pace where our processes don't seem to be adequate for what we need with a modern system.
Well, let me just say, if I could, in response, that a couple things. One is, I mean, what you've read there may be inconsistent with what we've heard from Rockwool, but keep in mind, I mean, Rockwool at least has argued that the manufacturing drains are all recaptured and reused, so within a sort of an internal process. Now, so that would be worth us at least seeing the schematics, as you say, and see if that story is consistent with what they've said. So I mean, there could be an explanation for the floor drains and the recapturing of those not being a part of the storm system, or the sewer system. But again, we need to see the plans in order to do that. The other thing I would say is I did ask, as I was drafting this letter, one of the things I was thinking was, well, maybe the policy position with the council could be advocating for is that any new industrial user that comes online will be required to submit their plumbing schematics to the city of Charlestown. Could we make that a new policy moving forward? And I'll at least tell you the answer I got, so whether we like the answer or not. I mean, the answer you get from the utility board staff essentially is, well, does it really matter what the internal plumbing plan is? Because they've got a meter that basically measures the flow that enters into our system, and at the end of the day, that's one of the things we're measuring. And the other thing we're measuring then is the content of that flow as it goes through the meter. And there are, as they said at last week's workshop, they are monitoring not only the flow but the content via existing policy. So understanding the schematic in the building to them, again, didn't seem like a critical element because you measure it at the point at which it connects into the system.
And from a layman's point of view, I mean, certainly I'm not a utilities expert, But from a layman's point of view, the reason why it's required typically is because that allows them to do fixture counts. So as the builder, you want to save as much money as you can. So you want to put in the smallest meter possible that you can get away with. You want the smallest line coming out of your building that you can get away with. And typically, you can build a building and have a small size line that'll probably get you through 99% of the time until you're operating at max capacity, until you have every sink turned on at the same time and every toilet's flushing at the same time. And that's what these fixture counts do. They say, yes, okay, you could probably get away with that little tiny meter that you have, but most specifications, and there's a little chart that they use that says, each sink counts for this, and it even goes further in depth as to what types of urinals and what types of toilets and how much water they use to determine that. And like I said, I mean, that seems like modern permitting, modern utility permitting, and that's kind of how it works. I mean, like I said, I find it a little nuts that if that's where we're at right now with our modernization of how we accept new users, that's far behind the times. I mean, that's far behind the times.
So who's applying the meters in the, I thought we were doing that. The C-Tub was.
For water usage or water
No,
flow?
for the sewer flow. I thought we were providing the meters and the sampling equipment.
Well, yeah, I was going to say,
I think we're doing the sampling, but I
Probably.
think the meter is their responsibility. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe.
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know who supplies that piece of equipment, so we'll
So
ask.
I guess what I'm saying is we need consistency. We can't say, okay, we need plumbing schematics from this guy, but we don't need plumbing schematics from this guy.
I'm with you. I don't think that's my intent here is not to make C-Tub policy. I mean, I think that's more in the minutia of running a utility than the city council needs to intertwine itself in.
Okay.
I'm just calling attention to the fact that they're not dealing with that minutia of, hey, we need to get some processes in place. But certainly I don't want to see the city council sit here and debate, every C-Tub policy. But I hope they look at it. But in this circumstance, yeah, when we had to sit here and not approve the MPDS permit really, and when we have to make these decisions, yeah, these are the things we need C-Tub to be going out there and collecting for us and bringing back so that we can know what we're talking about. And hopefully they would look at the plumbing schematics before they come to us and say, here's what we see on this thing. Everything looks good to go, or we've identified some issues here that we're looking for guidance on. But yeah, I don't want to see us sitting here making every policy for the way C-Tub operates.
So with this particular issue, though, what satisfies you that Rockwool is fulfilling their requirement to you? Because basically this letter is to you.
What satisfies me is if they deliver their plumbing schematics and it proves to us that there are 4 things coming into our wastewater treatment plant that we submitted on our MPDS permit to the federal EPA, to the West Virginia DEP, and that we didn't fraudulently do that. That's what satisfies me.
Okay, so I'm just playing a devil's advocate here.
Absolutely.
So if you get that, you sit down with the engineers, and we have our engineers too. We figure it out and go, yeah, this is how it's going to work. Why do we need a copy of the plans?
I think it's important to have, obviously you have alterations to plans when you do a project, especially one of the magnitude that they're doing up there. They're going to, they probably change their plans almost daily as they, come across different unforeseen circumstances. But I'm sorry, I don't trust this customer. So yeah, do I want the city to have a historical record of how we've been told this thing is going to be hooked up? Absolutely. And I would hope that if they are acting in good faith, if they had an alteration to those plans that had anything to do with us, that they would let us know and send us a copy of the modification to the plan. If it doesn't have anything to do with us, if it has something to do with their stormwater management up there that doesn't impact us or affect us, no, I don't expect them to tell us that. But I think it's important to have a historical record with this customer, because all too often you can go back to our historical records of these meetings and disprove many of the things that we are being told.
Okay, so do the historical records need to have copies of the schematics included?
Yes, that's
The
what I'm...
historical matter could be a matter of sitting down with the engineers, having our engineers, and understanding what the schematics, I'm just asking, understanding what the schematics are. With that's recorded exactly where these things are going. And so if there's any change, we would know, right? Or we would be...
It'd be he said, she said.
Well, no, we would record it. It'd be
What do you mean
Part of
record?
some official record that,
Video. The meeting would be video.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of overthinking it. Have them deliver their plans to us.
But like you and me, we're smart guys, or you are at least. If we're looking at the blueprints, are we going to really know what the blueprints are saying with all this?
We're not. That's why there has to be a historical record. I mean, am I going to be able to watch a video and hear two guys talk about a set of plans and have any,
No, I'm saying we sit down with the plans, and I'm just proposing an alternative here. We sit down with the plans with the people who are presenting the plans to us, and then experts who, quote unquote, are on our side that can explain, well, this is what that means. No, that doesn't mean that. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So this council has an understanding, okay, and CTEP for that matter, okay, I see where we're going with these plans,
I mean,
right?
in my perfect world, I think that would be part of the process, but at the same point, at the end of the day, I would want them to submit, their plans to us to keep.
Hope he doesn't eat much.
Hope not either. I was going to use this. I better not.
Conjunction with submitting either their plans electronically
Yeah, because
or in paper.
Who does our pest control, right?
Pest control.
Because, the plan, yeah, there you go. The plans itself, though, are meaningless without explanation. I guess that's my point. So if the plans are presented with explanation, and again, we fully understand as a governing body exactly what's going on, and CTUB understands what's going into their sewer system, and that's recorded, that's part of an official record. To me, like, all Rockwool would have to really do is give you the plans, right? And they wouldn't have any of that part. But we still would be right where we are right now.
We would be able to have anybody that the city deemed an expert look at them, which I would hope we have somebody at the utility that knows how to read plumbing schematics.
I guess my point is, it doesn't really matter with the schematics itself or whether we keep them on record or not. And like you said, if they're changed, how would we know they're changed unless they told us? And then they would submit another schematics. I just think there's another way we...
That's what I'm trying to protect for. That when 2 years down the road, when they're fully operational and we're sampling, and all of a sudden we find something in it that's not supposed to be in there, they go, oh, well, that was on our plumbing schematics that we delivered to the city of
Doesn't matter, it's
Branson.
not in the permit.
And then what do we do at that point? They go,
They stop.
oh, yeah, do they?
Yeah.
I mean, how?
Or do they just pay a fine and keep on
They
going?
pay a fine until they
Exactly
if they can't fix it, it stops. They have to do something else with the sewer, truck it or whatever the case is. That's my understanding anyway. That's kind of what came out of our workshop.
I mean, I'm not going to lie.
I want to get this resolved for sure.
No, it just dissuades me that this city council doesn't think that they have an authority to tell this customer, deliver your damn plans to us. I mean, it's just tell them, deliver the plumbing plans. We're connecting a $16 million line to your building. Like I brought up the last time, what side of the building do we run it to? How do we know?
Well, that's a little simplistic, but what I'm saying,
Simplistic.
yeah, because we do that with all our customers now. We say, here's the line, you need to connect to our line. That's how it works. But all I'm saying is, I think we want the information, you need the information, and I agree 100% with you. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way we can get that without, throwing down the gauntlet and say, hey, we need the plans, because I don't really see keeping those on file, how that helps the situation.
In all sincerity, if you want me to be blunt, I think the way that meeting would go would be you and I being there probably, and anybody else interested. Rockwool's Danish engineer that they offered to fly in to explain the plans to us laymen would be there. They would tell us a bunch of stuff, and I think our staff at CTUB would say, yep, looks good.
We'll
And
bring
how
it-
will I know any different?
Well, how will we know anyway? Let's bring in any engineer we want. We'll bring any engineer we want into that meeting to question them on it.
I guess I don't see why it would be a big
Yeah, I'm
deal
not
at
sure
all.
why a copy of their schematics would be an undue hardship for them if it already exists. I would imagine that a copy would be a minimal expense in the big picture for them.
I don't disagree with you, but so we don't know. Why are they resistant to give us a copy of these?
So I like your clause, a written explanation of why you don't feel we need one.
And I would only say to take caution at their written explanations.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Their written explanation last time to the sewer numbers down there was that they didn't see the transparency in their billing. And who did they blame? They blamed their utility. They didn't blame themselves, they blamed their utility.
Yeah, I don't think, there's nothing in here that says we have to accept your
Now we're
explanation.
8 months later, we still don't have any suitable explanation from them to that, and they won't provide any more information on it. I mean, they've gone silent. They don't attend our meetings anymore. They don't send us any more information. They're not working with us anymore because they realized that that was bad PR for them to come here and answer questions. It wasn't doing them any favors. Now they're gone. This is not somebody that I would do business with. I guess I'll leave it at that. I've talked enough on this one.
All right. Is there any other discussion on this? Beat this horse dead?
The issue here is whether to send them this request, right?
Which one?
So we have two, I was going to say, we have two versions of the letter. One is,
Well, to send a letter, period, right? And then which version do we want to send?
So
Yes,
while
ma'am.
I understand the nature of having this extra clause in here, it concerns me, though, that it gives them an out. If you provide this, then you don't have to, if you tell us why, then you don't have to give it to us. That's a kind of, so I read it both ways. Does that
Right.
make sense? Because it says, do this, provide it, or tell us why not.
Well, it doesn't mean that they
You know,
still
so
don't,
I don't know.
yeah, I agree with you, but it still doesn't say you're not going to submit them. It says, is there something that we're not seeing here?
Yeah.
Transparency on their part.
I mean, either way, they could still, either one of them, they could still provide written explanation why they're not providing. I mean, if they do have a reason, the first one, they'll come out and say why they're not sending it regardless, or they'll be silent, one of the two.
And so I would
we
say
won't.
that the first one kind of then shows that we're a little more authoritative in our ask.
I actually agree with you.
Yes, I got one.
Write that down.
Well, I'll make a motion that we submit the draft that's in the agenda packet.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of submitting the original draft of the letter to Rockwool Incorporated, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you all.
That took a little longer than I thought it was gonna. That's good. Okay.
Healthy debate.
Absolutely, yeah. So the next thing is the prevention